This is a stitched-together compilation of TikToks explaining why some believe the U.S. is heading toward collapse. I don't own these clips. This is purely for educational and awareness purposes.
Go ahead. You're welcome.
Over the last few weeks, several countries have warned their citizens about travel to the U.S., and the Department of Commerce's own stats show that from a lot of countries, the number of visitors is falling. Does the White House have any message for people that might be reconsidering business or tourism travel to the U.S.?
Where did you see that report?
With the statistics coming from the Department of Commerce.
Said what? It's hard to hear you. Sorry.
That visitors from a lot of countries have fallen in the last 3 months.
I'd have to look at that report to comment on the merits of it. I think most people around the world recognize the United States of America is a great place to do business. It's a beautiful place to visit, and they should certainly come here because it's a much safer country than it was 4 years ago under the previous president.
On tourism, there's been a steep drop-off in international travel to the United States. It was down 12% last month, down even more from Western Europe. Why do you think that there are fewer people suddenly who want to travel to the United States?
Well, that could be a little there's a little nationalism there, I guess, perhaps.
Do you think some people are scared to come here because they hear the stories of tourists who are detained for a few days or even a week or two?
No, we treat our tourists great. We're the tourism capital of the world. There's no place like this, and there may be a little bit of nationalism, but I doubt it.
Because last month, visits to the U.S. from overseas fell 11.6%. And in Las Vegas alone, the international tourism decline is expected to mean an $18 million drop in room revenue. $18 million, which I believe is 2 mini-fridge Toblerones. And because this, people from overseas are frightened to come here, okay? To say goodbye to some of our biggest international party people, because we're seeing our biggest drop in Australian visitors since COVID. Do you know how bad things have to be to scare off Australians?
Tourism to America has fallen off a cliff. It's down 40%. And does anyone wonder why? Would anyone want to go to Donald Trump's America right now as a tourist? You certainly wouldn't if you were Chinese or looked like you might be Chinese. You certainly wouldn't if you were a European. You certainly wouldn't if you have a point of view on Israel-Palestine, for example, because you can't even just leave your phone behind. They have taken AI readings on your social media habits, and you simply won't be allowed into the United States. So the 40% drop in tourism is going to harm the American economy very severely indeed. And this attitude of snarling belligerence, whether it's mild-mannered Denmark, pusillanimous Panama, or the mullahs in Iran, or the Arabs in the Levant, you are making enemies forever, and generational enemies forever for the United States. It's unnecessary, it's ugly, and it won't work.
So y'all know them travel advisory reports that the United States loves to push out, basically telling us to not go to certain places because they're violent or it's not safe. Yeah, so the Department of Commerce has now issued a report showing a growing list of countries advising their citizens to not come to the United States, to not come and visit the United States. Yeah, now we are not the safe country. So I'm reading from an article that you can find on Forbes.com, right? So it says that the United States government reported a double-digit overall drop in international arrivals last month, with much bigger losses coming from Canada, Mexico, and lucrative Western Europe markets, suggesting foreign tourists are staying away in significant numbers due to the tariff backlash and even harsher immigration tactics. So I'm just going to read off some of these statistics. So in the Caribbean, they have seen a 26% drop from visitors and tourists. Africa, 10% drop. South America, 11% drop. Central America, 24% drop. Asia is a 1% drop. And now the two largest governments, or the two largest European markets, the United Kingdom is down 15%, and then Germany is down 29%. These governments are telling their citizens to not come over to the United States, not visit the United States, in fear that ICE agents will detain their citizens and not bring them back to their native land, which we see is the case here in this administration. If they come here, God forbid, get detained by ICE, ICE will not allow them to prove that they're visiting, will not allow them to prove their visas. They will most likely send them to a detention center and then ship them over to El Salvador's mega prison, just like they did with that teenage New York Bronx kid that's actually from Venezuela. Instead of deporting him to his native country, they deported him to the mega prison. Yeah, that's what they don't want to happen. Because if that happens, there's no way for people, their actual family and their government to even be made aware of what's going on, because ICE agents will not inform nobody. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt was actually questioned on this yesterday during a press conference, to which she said, I haven't even seen the report. I haven't even seen the report. As the White House Press Secretary, is that not your job? Is that not your job to be aware and to manage the reputation of the government? Instead, she decided to say, while I haven't seen the reports and I would have to read it in order for me to effectively comment, I do believe that the administration that we're in right now is so much safer and so much better than the one that we were in previously 4 years ago. So I don't know why they would be advising their citizens to not come over here. It's because of this administration's policy and their harsh immigration tactics. That's why. These are tourists that often have to come over here on a visa. ICE agents are not allowing people to even prove their legal status. Why the fuck would anybody come over here? Just so you know, the United States makes $2 trillion in tourism. $2 trillion that we're starting to lose now. And that $2 trillion is tied up in the United States GDP, which is part of the reason why the US dollar is the world's reserve currency. That goes down. I think you know where I'm going with this. So now, thanks to this administration and all of its dumb policies, we are facing a possible recession, inflation. The entire world globally is laughing and mocking our democracy and our government. We are now starting to lose profit that we make on tourism. And as a New York City native, I'm not gonna lie, we could use a little less tourism here in New York City, but overall, for American economy, that's not a good thing. It's not a good thing at all. Maybe if this administration wasn't too worried with trying to rack up and rally as many free slaves to ship over to that mega prison in El Salvador, we wouldn't have to be dealing with this.
So United States tourism is plummeting in the billions of dollars, that is. And you know how folks often tell international communities how much they need our tourism dollars? A lot of Americans forget that their own cities thrive off of tourism. In 2023 alone, the United States travel and tourism market contributed to $2.36 trillion. And the cities and states that rely heavily on hotel taxes, sales taxes, and other tourism-related fees, less tourism for you means less funding in education, transit, and infrastructure in your city or state.
I think that the damage done to the United States' reputation as a safe country to be in and to visit by this administration is going to last decades, unless something really drastic is done by the subsequent administration. Since Donald Trump took office, you've seen scientists turned away from the United States. You've seen Germans being detained for not booking hotels. You've seen Australians and British citizens, just ordinary civilians who were traveling, being detained. by the thugs at ICE and Immigration Services. Allegedly got 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds who crossed the US border without parents having to represent themselves in court because the Trump administration does not see fit to give these unaccompanied minors legal representation. We've got discussions of homegrowns being deported to El Salvador along with the supposed gang members, most of whom do not have a criminal record in the United States. The US tourism industry has already started to dip, but we're going to see more decline in that. I look forward to discussing that in a future video because people in other countries no longer feel safe coming along. To top it off, recently you've got people like David Pakman, so like naturalized US citizens, being strongly advised by immigration lawyers not to leave the country because there's no guarantee that he won't just be locked up for trying to get back in. I'm very lucky. I've been on holiday to the United States twice in my lifetime. I went once in 2015 and once again in 2017. Went to Florida and Colorado, had a great time in both instances. I've always wanted to go back, but I kid you not, I have pushed back any potential plans to travel to the US by at least 5 years, possibly 10. Because even if Donald Trump is no longer president in 4 years' time, 2 years' time, a year's time, whichever, it's still not going to be a safe place to be. Like, you need to think about the individuals that are currently in the immigration services, running ICE, part of ICE, operatives and agents for ICE. They wouldn't be doing what they were doing unless they wholeheartedly 110% wanted what they were doing to happen. You don't sign up for a job like that unless you already have a deep-seated hatred of people who are different from you. Just because the guy they worship is out of office doesn't mean any of that's going to change. America will still have an immigration system staffed by far-right nutjobs, meaning that anyone coming from outside the country, and even the people from inside the country, are not safe and will not be safe unless a subsequent administration does something extremely dramatic, like dissolve the entire organization and start again from scratch. I genuinely don't see another way around it. When I last went to the United States, I was challenged by a border security officer because my name was spelt wrong. You don't need to know what my name is, but there are different ways of spelling it, and he said it wasn't the right one. He was sort of joking at the time, but I know that if I went back to America in 2025 and someone said your name is spelt wrong, I would find myself in an ICE detention facility like that, because there's no guarantee of due process or the rule of law or the consistent application of policy for anyone anymore. Therefore, the United States is no longer a safe place to be or to visit as a foreigner. It's exclusively thanks to Donald Trump and the nut jobs that he empowers. I hope it will change, and I'm confident that it will at some point in the future. But it will take a long time, and it will take a lot of work on the part of the United States to convince the rest of the world that they can be trusted again.
Canadians going to the US have decreased in the month of March by 900,000 people. You can read this article that just came out from CBC, and last month this one that also came out from CBC. Basically, compared to 2024, in the month of February, numbers are down by 500,000 people crossing the land border. In March, numbers are down by 900,000 people year over year from last year, Canadians crossing the land border to the United States. And there is no sign of this slowing down. It's only going to ramp up. So be prepared, Americans. This summer, you're not going to see us traveling there.
Are you thinking of taking a trip to the States? Do you want a bite of the Big Apple? Well, there are certain concerns, and you might be concerned as well. Figures fresh out of the United States show that for March, 17% fewer Europeans visited the States compared to the year before. And that's going to leave the industry with something like an $18 billion hole. What's been dubbed the Trump slump has been caused by volumes of anti-European rhetoric, media reports of people spending up to a fortnight in jails at the border, and of course, the international turmoil over Trump's tariffs. There are concerns that attendance at next year's FIFA World Cup that America's co-hosting could also be hit. Experts are hoping that the scale of potential losses will force the Trump administration to rethink the way it currently welcomes visitors.